Hey everyone, welcome to today's webinar. I'm very excited to have you all here. My name is Christine, and today we're going to cover the product enhancements involving the AR module. As a reminder, all these changes will go live once the release of version 2.9 is complete. The code release should be finished around 2 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time this Wednesday, September 27th. So before we begin, please allow me to introduce you all to Lucia. Lucia is a product manager on our team, and she's been helping keep the train on the tracks with the development of this feature. At Stay in Touch, Lucia has been focusing on the development of the financial areas in Rover, but she has 12 years of experience within the hospitality industry, and while Lucia started her career working in hotels, she soon found herself transitioning to a hospitality software company where she assisted with implementation, support, and product development. In addition, Lucia has also worked for many mainstream hotel chains where she implemented central system solutions, PMS solutions, as well as a number of other hotel software solutions globally before she joined Stay in Touch. New, and maybe you haven't been to any of our webinars, I'd just like to quickly introduce you to our process. Once I finish my introduction, I'll hand over the call to Lucia, and she'll begin talking about the AR module. As always, we'll wrap up the webinar by opening up the conversation to your questions. As some of you may have noticed, there's a chat icon, and you've been muted thus far. But with the chat icon, you can submit questions to us. That is a great way to ask questions during the webinar, as well as during the Q&A portion. If you're a little more shy, we definitely welcome you to submit questions to the At All group. And once we unmute everyone, you will have the option to ask your questions directly. So feel free to either message or just talk to us during the Q&A portion. All right, and so with that, I'd like to thank you all for joining. I'll be handing over the call to Lucia now. Lucia, will you please talk to us a little more about the AR module?
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us. So this is a very exciting time for us to be able to share with you some functionality for AR that you may or may not have been waiting for, but we are very excited to be bringing this over to you. So what I would like to show you in this webinar is currently what we have done and what you will be getting when we release 2.9, and as well what is on the roadmap, which will be available to you in the next 3 to 4 weeks. So phase 1 and phase 2 basically. Phase 1 is going to focus on the ability to allocate and unallocate payments fully or partially to existing invoices. We have changed the design of accounts receivable, which you will see right now. And we are also able to enter manual balances for between openings. So if you're going from one software to our software, you'll be able to enter in your old balances in Rover, which will also make sure that it calculates correctly for your reporting purposes. I'll be taking you directly to our financials account receivable module. The main screen as such has not changed. However, when you enter into an account, you will notice that we have changed currently the layout of the tabs. Instead of having a cluster on the top where you have the unallocated amounts, the unallocated credits, how much you have outstanding balances, etc., we have now divided those information areas into specific tabs. So we have 4 tabs, which I will go over them one by one with you. The balance tab will show you the total amount of outstanding balances from the invoices that have been checked out to direct bill. You can see the reservation, the invoice number, and the confirmation number, the departure date, and you also have an expand button, which will then show you the actual charges posted to this direct bill and when it was transferred over to IBM. So the sum here is the sum of all the open invoices. When you go into the Paid Bills tab, you will notice all the invoices which have already been paid fully. So all the invoices that have already been paid and they're no longer outstanding will be shown here. The invoice itself is set to 0. However, we do show the sum total of all the invoices that has been paid already as a summary amount here. You also have pagination at the bottom of the page, so you can scroll through different pages and locate your invoice. Of course, if you don't want to go through the various pages, you can also search by the name or the invoice number, and that result will be brought up to you based on your search criteria. The unallocated tab is going to show you all the unallocated credits that currently exist. As you can see, we have none in IBM. I will come back to that in one moment. And the allocated tab shows you all the payment credits that have already been associated to invoices, and they are no longer available for unallocated credit. Every check that has been received, and if it has been allocated against that invoice, you can then expand the arrow and you'll be able to see which invoices this specific payment method has been allocated to. I will come back to the X next to it in a moment. So, let's say we would like to go ahead and allocate or pay off this invoice. Right now, we do not have any allowed or any open credit. So to open or to assign a credit, we need to add payment. When we add payment, this is a screen that you already are probably familiar with. You can select cash, check payment, etc., etc. You can also add a reference depending on where you're getting the information from. Especially for check numbers, you will probably want to assign a reference to it. So I can add a reference, an amount of $500 and make payment. When I click make payment, this $500 is going to be recorded in the AR ledger and in the journal, as well as in the unallocated tab. As you can see, I now have credits that I can allocate against this specific invoice. I can do it directly from here by selecting the allocate button and an invoice. You can see at the bottom you have the cash payment and the amount available to allocate against the invoice. Or if you do not wish to go from the unallocated tab, you can go directly to the balance tab. You can select different payment types from here if you would have multiple payment types, and then you can select to allocate it. I would now wish to allocate the full or total amount invoice of $214.95. I select this invoice. As you can see, I now have this field available for me to enter the amount I wish to allocate against this invoice. By default, it's obviously going to take the total amount of that invoice. If I'm happy with that, I will say pay selected. And that invoice has currently now disappeared from our open balances because it went over to the paid bills tab. I would like to now allocate a partial amount to this invoice. I select the invoice, I select the payment amount, and I currently only have $70 to allocate. So at the bottom here, you will have information that you have available 70, and your full amount would be 370. You of course can also select multiple invoices, and the total will be automatically calculated for you. At the moment, I currently can only add $70.10 to put the full amount of this cash payment, and I would say pay selected. Once an invoice has been paid partially, you will see that there is a wallet icon. This means that there's still outstanding amount that needs to be paid and that an already existing amount has been allocated against this invoice. Because the invoice has not been paid fully, the invoice will remain on the balance tab until such time that it's completely paid off, whereby then it will move over to the paid bills tab. As you can see right now, again, I have 0 unallocated credits because I have utilized my cash payment fully. If I go to the allocated tab, I can see that my cash payment is here, and if I expand my invoice or expand my credit, I will see against which invoices this specific payment has been made. I would like to add an additional payment, and this time I will do, again, cash payment with a total sum of, let's say, $1,000. You can say also allocate payment after posting, which would take you then directly, it would auto-populate the cash on the balance tab. So make payment. Again, by making payment, it goes and is lodged against the AR ledger and the journal. Why do I keep bringing up that it becomes lodged against the AR ledger and the journal? Because once it is actually unallocated or sitting in the unallocated tab, by allocating against invoices, this does not necessarily, it does not change AR ledger and it does not change the journal because the amount has already been received. So, if you notice, because my total balance is $572.16 and the available amount I have left to pay is $1,000, or allocate, sorry, I now have the ability to select Pay All. If I click Pay All, it will simply pay all the outstanding balances of the invoices. If I wish to only complete the payment of this specific invoice, I go ahead and say Pay Selected. My apologies. And my invoice is now disappeared from the screen. And it has gone over to the Page Sales tab. If I've made a mistake and I would like to reverse the unallocated payment, I can search by the name for my invoice. I expand it and I say this invoice should not have been paid fully and it was incorrectly unallocated. To unallocate the payment, you click on the X and it will take you to the screen which is called unallocated payment. It will unallocate $70.10 and it will return it over to the unallocated tab, and this invoice will return back to the balance tab. So I say yes, I agree to this unallocation. You will see it disappears from the Page Sales tab, and it is currently under my balance tab. You can see I only see one invoice because it has taken the search criteria fill, which has filled in with top. If I remove it, I still see my 2 invoices. I can then go ahead and unallocate the other amount, and the invoice is now outstanding to be paid fully up to $170.95. I can also do unallocation from directly to Pay Sales tab. So anywhere I can actually see the specific check, I can then unallocate it. I can also unallocate from the Allocated tab, whereby it takes you to the same screen as the previous invoices that we are unallocating. Please ignore my some of my test data because we've been playing around with it. So I should actually unallocate 180 which you would then see that it will say Analytical, and that payment check is then going to be returned to the Analytical tab. You will now see the cash payment, and you will see the payment check. Also, under the Analytical tab, you will see that the credits that you still have left also have a wallet, which means that they have been partially allocated against specific invoices. And you can review them through here again. One additional item that we have on the balance tab is that we have the ability to add manual balances. Manual balances are balances that you would generally enter in when you are switching from one system to another. The manual balance functionality in Rover is set in such a way that this is purely non-revenue entries, because in the old, if you're, for example, using Opera, then and you're switching over to Rover, the revenue generated for these invoices would have in Opera, and when you enter them into Rover, you do not wish to re-enter the revenue because it has already been locked. So you have an option to actually enter in all balances using invoice numbers, so you can do invoice by invoice by invoice, or you can do a lump sum per aging period. So here we can specify the departure date. The departure date is very important when you enter in manual balances, for the sole purpose that the date you enter in, so for example, if I enter in the 6th of June, this will start to calculate the aging period from the 6th of June to the current business day. And the amount is going to be, let's say, $350. If you have more manual balances you wish to enter, you click on the plus sign and you enter in additional invoices or additional manual balances based on the lump sums. Once you have completed this, you click on Save, and those manual balances are entered on your Balance tab as individual invoices. You can see here that you don't have an arrival date, and this is because obviously you don't have an arrival date, you just have the departure date. You cannot expand these because you don't have the information behind those invoices in Rover. You will only be able to expand it once you actually allocate a credit against it. So if I were to allocate 250 for this specific invoice, selected, you will be then able to open up that invoice and see that a cash payment has been made against this invoice. So as you can see, you can allocate and unallocate fairly simply in the system, and you can also add manual balances in a fairly straightforward manner. Our statement remains pretty much what you have. So it's a very simple statement like you currently have. We are actually working on a new design for a statement, which is going to come in release of 2.10. So currently you have the standard statement that you right now have, but we're going to make it more prettier and nicer in the next release. And you can, of course, do that. Statements, just for information, are looking at the current tab that you're in. So on the Balance tab and on the Paid Bills tab, I'm able to include payments. Include payments only refers to the allocated payments against these invoices in AR. So if I say include payment, and I click on the statement, I will be able to see payments if they have been already allocated against these invoices, which we have in here. But again, as I said, we'll make it a lot prettier, the statement whereby, just so you know what's coming, because it may not look as nice to you. We will be changing the charge amount, the amount due, and credit. So we will have debit, credit, and amount due, so it will be in more logical and sequential order. So that's coming soon. Yes, so back to the statements. You have the include payments on balance tab and on the bills, paid bills tab. When you are on the unallocated tab, because these are only credits that have been associated with this account, you will only get the summary of the credits per tab. So as you can see here, you will not have the details of the invoices, but you just have the summary of those specific payments. And back to the manual balances, because there's an extra step you would need to do actually in order to enter in manual balances. You would need to create a charge code. Let's say 7,000. Charge group room, and charge code type is going to be AR manual balance. This will ensure that this charge code is going to remain as non-revenue. You save the changes, and then you go back into financials, accounts receivable, and then you can select the manual charge code that you have created. You will only see the ones which are created with the charge code type AR manual balance. So this is what we have currently done in the system, and what we are going to do is we will be able to do a refund of the payment. Currently this is not going to be in 2.9. However, there's hotels which may have actually accidentally added a check to the wrong account. So if I look at my Analytical tab and I look at my cash payment of 750, it should not have been 750, or actually the full amount is 1,000. What we would need to do is first unallocate the payment, which has been allocated against the invoice, and then you will be able to refund this amount of money using the refund button. So it will actually be removed from this account, and also there will be a this will also reflect in the error ledger and in the journal. But the one thing that I know most of you are waiting for is you would want to have the ability to edit charges which are currently on an invoice, to post charges against an invoice, and to move an invoice from one account to another account. So the ability to edit or adjust a charge code is coming with the next sprint. Ability to post a charge against an existing invoice is also going to come in the next release. Ability to post a charge and create an internal AR invoice is also going to come in the next release. The ability to move an invoice from one area, one account to another account will be in 2.10, as well as additional permissions to make it more streamlined. Some of you have also asked to be able to add notes and references to postings when you're actually doing a post charge against an invoice or against an AR account. Those will also be visible in AR. So this is what we have worked on, what we are still working on. So I return the floor back to you for questions, and I will try to answer as much as I can with the knowledge that I have what we're doing in the system. So if you have any specific scenarios in your mind, do bear with me until I figure out how we can actually get it into AR for you, or how it would work in our system.
There's mentioned the moving invoices, being able to add descriptions and details and notes and things like that will come in within the next couple months or something like that?
So we already have the design, and we already have the features scheduled to start next week. So you're going to get 2.9 on Wednesday.
Yeah.
So 2.10 is going to have the move, the edit, the post functionality in.
Okay, and that's what you said, like, months?
That's in about 3 to 4 weeks.
Oh, perfect.
Yeah, we were unfortunately unable to make it all in 6 weeks, the entire AR, so unfortunately we had to split it into 2 phases. So right now you get the new screens and the functionality that you currently have, with the ability to allocate and allocate partial internet payments. And the new funky design, which we don't have in Rover right now, is coming in a month.
Gotcha.
Less than a month.
Awesome. I do kind of have a question, and I'm going to see if it can make sense to you over the phone. But yeah, in a situation where you have, if you press on the stay card of one of, let's say right there where Daryl Calloway is at, you press on stay card. Okay. And you went to bill and charges. When I press stay card on mine, I know why it's different. So for example, when you switch over, when you enter let's say a transfer payment or a transfer, amount, it kind of just shows this part automatically. It doesn't really have a stay card because they didn't actually stay it from our previous system. But if I was to change the transactions through here, it will not automatically post on the direct bill?
No.
Okay, so then you have to just reprocess the whole transaction and redirect bill it?
Yes.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
So hopefully in the next month, what you will be able to do is skip this entire process on the stay card and just do directly everything in the account, accounts receivable.
We would be able to modify transactions and discrepancies directly in the AR area, right?
Precisely, yeah.
Great. Thank you.
The other thing for everyone to know is that the base functionality is going to release out in tomorrow night's, or in Tuesday night's, Wednesday morning's release, and then there is a process we are running in the background that will do some updating of the tables and go from there to do some things that will kind of allow the allocations to be made and some items there. So you will notice that if you actually go into accounts receivable prior to your hotel's data all being migrated and the changes that will happen in the background and the database tables, you will not access it. You'll get a message that it's in the process. Lucia, can you remember the exact wordings that it says? But there will be a warning that just says, you can't do this yet. So if you go into log into AR first thing on Wednesday morning and you get some warning screen, it just is still in the background processing all of it because we're going through all of the different hotels and making all of the different processes updated.
So the warning message you will receive until the migration or the table structure has been changed is your AR is being updated. Please try again later. And for further information, please contact your system administrator. So if you do receive this message when you're trying to access your accounts receivable, it means that we're currently working on the architectural changes for your specific property. And once that is complete, you have full access to it again. So we have locked down accounts receivable on purpose for whatever it takes 5 to 10 minutes for a hotel to take. Please don't take my wording of 5 to 10 minutes as written in stone, because obviously it's a database, you never know what's going to happen. But we don't want accounting people to actually work in accounts receivable until we change the architecture, obviously, in the back end to make sure that there's not going to be any issues.